How's it going, everyone? It's Don with Overedge Props, here to bring you the number 2 most voted for render from my recent Twitter poll. And trust me, I'm going to need a lot more than 10 seconds to talk about this one. This is the Elucidator, which is usually seen alongside the Dark Repulsor, which may be a future render, who knows. And if those two names don't ring a bell, this sword is from Sword Art Online, which is a novel, a light novel, a manga, an anime. It has movies, it has games, it has so much stuff. Now, the Elucidator, if you didn't know, is wielded by the main character Kirito, aka the Black Swordsman, who is not to be confused with Guts from Berserk. Pretty sure he would rip him in two. Sword Art Online itself is pretty popular among the anime community and novel community, light novel community, manga, what have you. Uh, it is slightly hated. I don't know if hated's the right word, but basically people just don't like it because I guess they think it's a little too mainstream or, you know, plot continuity errors. I don't know. I've read a bunch of stuff about it, but, just like what you like. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Just move on. Just let people like what they like. Especially with the stuff going on right now. I mean, I've personally used this as a recommendation for people getting into anime. One of them being my cousin, and he fell in love with it. So, they must be doing something right. Uh, as I said, this was the number 2 most voted for render on my Twitter poll, right behind the Raid Shield. Uh, when both my cousin Brian and one of my best friends Ryan, who is the Shadows 13 over on Twitch, when they heard that this was actually on the poll, they both rushed over to Twitter and they voted on it, and their votes helped secure it for the number 2 spot. Now, personally for me, this is not my favorite Kirito sword. It is an iconic one of his, if not the most iconic one, but my favorite one is the Night Sky sword. And I really like the design of that one, and the fact that I was commissioned. That was the last commission I did in California before I moved. It does kind of hold a special place in my heart, but that's just my personal thought. A lot of people really like the Elucidator, especially when it's paired with the Dark Repulsor. Now, getting into the sketch portion of this, I was working with 4 different references because I wanted to make sure this thing looked as good as possible. I chose the sketch that you see before you now because it was the most clear and it was the flattest image I could find. I did have the other 3 opened up on my other screen as I worked, so that way I could look at those and make sure that things were right and change things that weren't, or change things that I wanted to. And I was also asking for both my cousin's and Ryan's critiques. Mainly when I got done with the 3D render, I wanted to make sure it looked good before I threw paint on it, and they both gave it their stamp of approval right then and there. The sketch itself took me about 45 minutes, give or take. It went pretty fast. I did, however, use a different sketching technique, if you can call it that. Uh, I basically split the sword into 3 pieces. I had the blade, I had the hilt, and I had the handle. And I basically used every piece of knowledge that I've gained from Fusion 360 and put it into this sword because I wanted this one, as I said, to look especially good. With that new technique, though, some good things happened, some bad things happened. Some of the pros were that I was able to sketch out each piece individually, obviously, but that actually enabled me to make sure that things were being scaled right, and it didn't clutter up my workspace a whole lot. Like when I got done with the blade, I was able to, and I finalized the blade portion, I was able to turn it off and work on the hilt so that way things weren't overlapping, and if I did need to change something, it didn't screw up something that I had already worked on, which has happened to me many times in the past and has actually caused me more headaches than anything. Um, but some of the cons that can happen is it can extend the timeline, which can lag down your computer a little bit. But getting into the 3D model portion of it, which is what we're all here for, right? This took me a little over an hour to do, which actually surprised even me. I did take my time on it. I was paying heavy attention to detail. But, out of since I've done so many renders now, I've gotten pretty comfortable with the stuff that I do know, and that in turn helped me actually get done a lot quicker. Uh, the new sketch approach that I took actually came into the 3D modeling portion as well, because I was able to first render the blade, get the bevels done, and then keep the blade up, raise the hilt, get it to where I liked, turned off the blade, and then was able to work on all the beveling for the hilt portion itself. But, just like in the sketch portion, I also ran into some problems when it came to the 3D model space. Uh, some of the pros were that, like I said, I could render each part individually and turn them on and off at will. Um, the beveling for the blade, I was able to actually get them mostly the same angle. And like when it came to the hilt, I was able to make sure that it was raised to the what I thought would be the correct, size. And it just made a cleaner workspace, not having a giant model sitting in front of me and instead having like three different pieces that I can, you know, show or hide at will. But some of the cons of it was that not all the bevels are the same angle. There was one on the hilts that kind of gave me an issue, but I think it still turned out all right. It's not that noticeable on there, but it's definitely something to consider for the future. When I was actually doing the painting portion of it, it did cause an issue, and that was because since there were three separate pieces, when I went to go just put on one flat color to then work off of, it made the paint job patchy for some reason when I joined everything. So I had to actually roll back the timeline, basically separate everything, and then basically add paint to each face or group a bunch of faces and add on color. But the biggest problem that I found is when I actually joined everything and started throwing on paint, there were voids in the body where there shouldn't have been and where there wasn't before I joined everything. So I don't know what that was about. That's something I got to look into and possibly try to figure out a solution for. But overall, the new approach was pretty good. Um, Doing the handle was probably the easiest part because now that I've learned how to use the revolve tool pretty well, making handles and stuff is pretty simple. And just doing one half of the blade and the mirroring it really cut down on a lot of work time as well. Yeah, I will probably be using this technique for future like sword renders. Maybe not so much for like armor or um, like shields and stuff. But I mean, if I can, I will. But there are some things I need to work out with it first. Me and Fusion have to have a little talk. But I mean, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed doing this project. You know, like all my other ones, I always say I enjoyed doing this one. This one, like it was a little different for me. Mainly some of the funny conversations I had with Ryan and my cousin as well. Ryan made me laugh one day um, when I put up the Twitter poll and the Rage Shield one. He was like, "Oh yeah, man, I can't wait to see that. But you're gonna do the right thing, right? You're gonna render Elucidator first, right?" I'm like, "No, Ryan, I'm gonna do the Rage Shield, and then trust me, the Elucidator's coming up right after that, and it probably won't be that far behind." Because Ryan loves SAO, loves it. It's probably the biggest SAO fan that I know. I know my cousin Brian's probably gonna like give me crap for that, but Ryan's been watching a lot longer than you, cuz if you're watching this right now. But it just made me happy that two people that are really important in my life, were excited to see this render done, and that they actually took time out of their day to go over and click a button and vote on it. It means a lot to me when people are excited to see my work and support my work. So this was in a sense like my way of like thanking them, since it is from their favorite series and it is probably the most iconic sword from the series. Like I just hope that it lived up to their expectations in the end. Um, yeah, yeah. Enough of that rant. uh, the next render that is on the schedule is going to be Naofumi's standard shield from Rising of the Shield Hero, which is the silver one with the black like inlays and the big green jewel in the middle. I recently was able to get a couple of really nice reference pictures, and one of those reference pictures actually has a picture of the handle in the back, so I'm going to actually try to add that into the render as well. But after that, I know that there was another choice on that Twitter poll, but since it didn't get any votes, I've decided that I will probably not do a full commentary video of it. I will probably instead do a time-lapse video to some music, and that would be Pekarine's sword from Princess Connect Redive. I still really want to do that one just because the design is kind of funky and I really like it, but if it's not something that people were that excited for, then instead of doing this big production, I will just do like a personal project on it and see how it's received. Uh, but I have more. After either the shield is done or after Pekarine's sword is done, I'm going to be working on another original design. It's going to be for a Twitch VTuber. I'm not going to say who. I'm just going to leave it as a surprise. But their new design kind of sparks something in my imagination, and I have a physical sketch drawn out. I just got to actually put it into Fusion 360 and see how it goes. But they aren't commissioning me for it. It's going to be a surprise, just like all my other ones for the Twitch VTubers. But hopefully they like it. I hope it comes out well. As we're wrapping up, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like. If you have any questions or you would like to tell me something, feel free to comment down below, or if you're not already, also follow me on my Twitter, which is right here, which is OverEdgeProps. You can find my future schedule, if I have any polls going on, or if you just want to see me rant about stuff. And if you're ever bored, feel free to go on to Twitch and give my buddy Ryan, who is the Shadows 13, a follow over on Twitch. Consider joining the Shadow Realm. I'm a part of it. We have fun. But yeah, again, thanks for watching, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed it. And stay tuned for Naofumi's Standard Shield, which is coming up in the next video. Thank you.